What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. In today's video, I want to talk about draft prospect Kyle Pitts and should the Atlanta Falcons draft Kyle Pitts with their first round pick. But if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. Hit that like button for your boy. We're about 5 subscribers away from 1,000. So please hit that subscribe button if you enjoy my content. We're on the road to 1K, and we just need about 5 more people to hit that subscribe button, and we'll be at my milestone. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys who continue to tune into the channel. But with that being said, if you would like to follow your boy on Twitter, you can follow me at Jew Talk Sports. And with that being said, let's jump right into the video. So in today's video, I want to talk about draft prospect Kyle Pitts. He's the tight end out of the University of Florida. Should our Atlanta Falcons take him with our first round pick at number 4? Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing the Atlanta Falcons draft Kyle Pitts at that number 4 spot. He is a generational talent. I do think that Kyle Pitts is one of the best players on my draft board. He's one of the top players on my draft board. He goes about 6'6", 245 pounds, and he's just a freak of nature. Great athleticism, great hands, does a great job at high pointing the football, is a matchup nightmare for any defense. He's a hard guy to match up with, and I do think that if the Falcons draft him, a guy like our head coach Arthur Smith that loves to use multiple tight end sets, I do believe that he would know how to use a player like Kyle Pitts. He would get the most out of a player like a Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts and Hayden Hurst would be a matchup nightmare for linebackers and safeties and even cornerbacks because of their size and their speed. Both of those guys are great pass catchers. Both of those guys have great acceleration for the tight end position. To me, Kyle Pitts is so talented that he possibly could play the wide receivers position in the NFL. If you go look at Kyle Pitts highlights or his tape when he was at the University of Florida, they mainly used him kind of like a wide receiver. Most of the plays that I've seen on his highlight reel, he's split out like a wide receiver. He's not, lined up where he's blocking. He's basically a pass catching tight end, kind of like a Travis Kelce is used by the Kansas City Chiefs. He's similar to that, but to me, he's more explosive. He's faster than a player like Kelce because Kelce is a little bit bigger than he is. So he's definitely faster than a player like a Travis Kelce. And to me, his vertical leap, he has more vertical than a player like a Travis Kelce. So definitely a more explosive athlete. He also puts me in the mind a little bit of like a Megatron, DK Metcalf because of his skill set. In Kyle Pitts, if you go look at, like I said, his tape at the University of Florida, you have plays where he's high pointing the football over 3 defenders, 2 defenders, and he was just a guy that was a monster for the University of Florida last year and a nightmare for opposing defenses in the SEC last year. So I definitely think that Kyle Pitts, if he is taken at that number 4 spot, I wouldn't be upset as an Atlanta Falcons fan because of him being a generational talent. To me, I believe he's like a can't miss prospect. Could he possibly be a bust? Sure, because I've seen players that were more highly touted than a player like Kyle Pitts. But just from the tape that I've seen of this guy and from what I hear from other analysts and things of that nature, and people at Florida, the University of Florida, from what they say about him. On the collegiate level, he seems like one of those guys that's going to be a freak of nature in the league. And sometimes it's just a no-brainer. If a guy is there and you believe that he's one of the guys that's high on your draft board, I wouldn't be upset if the Falcons take him because, just because of his explosiveness. Also, because we brought in a new regime. And I do believe that the Falcons do need to take some defensive players as well in this draft. But we've heard Terry Fontenot say they're going to go with the best player available. And I do think Kyle Pitts could be one of the next great, Hall of Fame type tight ends. Not saying that he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but he has the ability, the God-given gifts to definitely be a future Hall of Famer if he can stay healthy, knock on wood. And if he gets in the right system, which I think the Arthur Smith scheme would fit him perfectly, I do think that he could be one of those guys that could be a future Hall of Famer. Or he has that God-given ability, that talent, where it's pretty much no holes in this game. The only thing I've noticed about him that I probably would say his biggest weakness is probably possibly being a blocker, like on the offensive line, on the end of the offensive line in the run game, because that's not what he does best. And I don't think if the Falcons drafted him, I don't see the Falcons using him to be a blocker. I think he'll be mainly used like a Travis Kelce, where you're splitting them out, you're using them in the slot. He could be one of those guys that's a chain mover on third down. So I do think that he could definitely be an asset for our Atlanta Falcons. Now, I wouldn't, if you ask me, would I take him if I were the GM of the Atlanta Falcons? Personally, I probably wouldn't. I possibly would try to trade down. But for if any reason we're unable to get the assets we want as far as trading down, to me, it's out of him, Kyle Pitts, Penei Sewell. Those are the two guys that I have that I would take at that number 4 spot, or maybe another offensive lineman like the kid out of Alabama, Leatherwood, or the other guy out of Alabama. I think his name is Deontay Brown or something like that. He's like a left tackle / guard. If we can solidify that offensive line on that guard position, because we are struggling in the interior of our offensive line, we need another guard, a left guard. I wouldn't mind seeing us draft a left guard at that number 4 spot. But if we don't go with the offensive lineman, then the next spot I would possibly say would be Kyle Pitts with that at that tight end position. I could see the Falcons going there, or I could even see the Falcons if we are able to trade down. At that point, then I would look at one of the edge rushers, like a Jalen Phillips, Gregory Rousseau. And I wouldn't even be upset if the Falcons also decided to go running back. If we go running back at that number, later on in the first round, if we're able to trade back, I wouldn't mind seeing the Falcons go with a guy like Travis Etienne or even Najee Harris to a lesser degree, just for the mere fact that Arthur Smith needs that number 1 tailback. I do believe that it still will be running back by committee, but I do think that Travis Etienne could also be one of those generational type running backs, one of those specialty running backs like a Marshall Faulk is who I've compared Travis Etienne. That's who he reminds me of, because he's able to run the ball and catch the ball out of the backfield. So those are some of the guys that I would look at possibly taking if we move down in the first round and trade back and get multiple picks. But if we're staying at the number 4 spot, I think the Falcons should seriously, take a guy like Kyle Pitts. So definitely, I strongly suggest we take a serious look at a Kyle Pitts, because from what I'm hearing and from what I've seen on tape just by the eye test, this dude look like an absolute stud. He has the size, has the speed, and like I was saying, you could possibly convert this guy into a wide receiver. Just the way that I watched, the way that he fluidly gets out of his routes and his breaks, he runs his routes real fluid, great hips, and he's able to, come in and out of his breaks. For a big guy that's 6'6", he moves really well, and he plays really well, runs good routes for a tight end at that size. And you can't teach size. That 6'6", 245 pounds will be a matchup nightmare for linebackers and safeties and cornerbacks in this league, especially if you pair him with a guy like Hayden Hurst, which both of those guys are elite athletes for tight ends, have elite speed, and both of them have great hands. I really think that we might have something if we were able to get those two guys to play together on this Atlanta Falcons offense. But with that being said, you guys let me know what you think about Kyle Pitts. Do you think he's a guy that the Falcons should, look at drafting? I kind of compare him, like I said, I'll compare him to like a guy like a DK Metcalf, also at that wide receiver position. I remember a couple years ago when DK Metcalf came out, he dropped in the draft because, a lot of the Mel Kiper Jr.'s and Ty McShays and things of that nature, the guys that do the draft and grade these players, they talked about DK Metcalf having injuries in college. They also talked about him not being able to run routes really well. And he ended up, turning into one of the better young wide receivers in the game. So He was another guy that, went to the combine and broke all of the, broke a number of records. And, a lot of NFL teams skipped over him that could have drafted him earlier in the draft. And he's another guy that is like a generational type talent in DK Metcalf. So I feel the exact same way about Kyle Pitts. Some team is going to trade up to try to get him if the Falcons don't go with him at 4. Like I said, I don't really mind having him at 4, but I think the best option for the Falcons right now, because we don't have the cap space, is possibly trading back and getting as many picks as possible, because the Falcons have a lot of holes on the defensive side of the ball, some holes on the offensive line, and also we have to fill some needs at the running back position. So at this point, I do think that Kyle Pitts would be kind of like a luxury or a luxury position or a luxury pick for the Atlanta Falcons. We don't necessarily need another tight end because we do have Hayden Hurst, who's a starter, who's a solid starter. But if we decide to go best player available and the Falcons, don't decide to draft a quarterback, we don't decide to draft an edge rusher because it's so early in the draft and we're not able to trade back for any reason and get the assets that we want, then I think that Kyle Pitts will be a good option for the Atlanta Falcons at that number 4 spot. Because to me, for the Falcons, it's only 2 players really that I'm looking at that I can make an argument that we should take at 4. And that's, to me, is Kyle Pitts, because he just looks like a generational talent. And then a guy like Penei Sewell, he's another guy that looks like could be a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer. And he has all of the tools to be an excellent guard or left tackle or right tackle in this league. So those would be the 2 guys I would look at if we're not moving back at 4. You go with the 2 best players available. And I think those guys are, the 2 guys I would look at. But with that being said, this been your boy Jew. You guys let me know what you think of the video. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Definitely hit that subscribe button for your boy. Let's get me to 1,000 by the end of the day. But I really appreciate each and every one of you guys. And as always, Falcons Nation, rise up. Peace.